If you have ever heard about the Happily Hired program, then you probably know the special guest of this session. Her name is Emily Liou. She's the founder and content creator behind CultiVitae. And she shared in this interview so many great insights about her own career. She was a recruiter in Fortune 500 companies and a headhunter. So she has plenty of experience. And she's now a career coach and a life coach. And she's sharing many, many insights about her clients, the negative beliefs that they sometimes bring to the table, how she's working with them on the goal line as well as the soul line, and how to make your life as a whole, including your career, a true joyful process. If that is of interest to you, you definitely have to stay tuned and listen up. Hi and welcome everybody to the Corporate Warriors podcast. My name is Fela, and in this episode, I'm so happy to have a special guest with me, Emily Liou. Hi, Emily. Thank you.
Yay! You pronounced it correctly. Most people butcher it, so kudos to you.
Very glad to hear that. So, Emily, if you do not know her yet, she's an ex-Fortune 500 recruiter and headhunter, and is now a certified career coach and a life coach as well. Just added that recently to her resume. And I would totally also call you an Instagram influencer, because I think you have over 35,000 followers, and you've helped like thousands of people already to get happily hired in new positions, to get salary increases. So you have already gone like the miles and helped so many people out there. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming to the show.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. And I used to cringe, by the way, at the word influencer. But now I'm realizing what I put out there influences people, and just own it. So I appreciate that. But I also like the word content creator better.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And you definitely are a content creator. But I think the influence is very, very positive. So my opinion is something you should be proud of.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So Emily, do you mind just introducing yourself a little bit from your perspective? Obviously, I was going very, very high level. So anything else you want to add to your introduction?
Yeah, you really nailed it. I guess the only thing that I really want to include is my big mission and my why of what I do, because to me, my whole motto is life is too short to not wake up happy on Mondays. And I feel like, yes, career is such a big part of our day. Like that's a third of our day if we think about it, another third sleeping. But then there's another third of just life. And I feel like when I started my career, I was very career driven, and like I just got to climb up this ladder and achieve. And I attract a lot of clients like that. But I think at a point we're all kind of sitting here like, okay, well, what's the purpose? What's the point? And to me, the reason why I'm broadening out to more general holistic life coaching is I think career is important, but that's just like one piece of the pie. And if you're putting all your attention in just career and you're neglecting the rest of the values and the things that are important to you, then you're going to live this imbalanced, unhealthy life. And to me, I just want you to be happy on Mondays, whether or not you're going into work. So to me, it's about like a very holistic, a holistic wheel. And then the second thing I'll just add is I really believe in both mindset and strategy. So thinking about holistically, like what you need. A lot of people just think like, tell me what to do. What are the strategies? How do I get a job? But like, if you don't really believe you're worthy, you don't believe you're capable, you don't believe you're good enough, like you're always going to find ways to prove that to you. So I really believe in mindset and strategies, which we can dig into.
I love that. And by the way, also one common ground that we have for sure, probably besides many, but I'm also a career coach, but my certification is as a spiritual life coach. So I could not agree more with you. And it's great to see, how the whole industry starts to evolve and change. And I think a more holistic approach is always a more healthy approach as well. So that is just great that you can spread that now also to so many people and empower them and help them to see their life and career from a different perspective.
Yeah. And I just want to add to that. Like, I think it's so important that you have that spiritual life background, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what career coaches are out there. And so I think maybe it's helpful to just define that for a moment, because to me, like, a lot of people come to me for like resume help. I need help figuring out what to do and my title and how to job search and how to negotiate and how to interview. To me, like, that's actually looking for a consultant, because you're really looking for someone who is an expert of like a process. They just know like the best practices and they're trying to tell you what to do. But the reason why I love coaching, and I don't think a lot of coaches out there are actual coaches, they're more consultants, and people are looking for consultants. But to me, like, coaching is what you just shared there. It's more about like the spirituality and the life of like finding the answers from within versus just asking for answers. Because nobody knows you better than you. And I always tell my clients, like, I can tell you to go do all this strategic things, like go network and say this and that. But again, if you're like thinking you can't take up space, or like you're afraid of rejection, or like putting yourself out there, then it doesn't matter. Right. So I just love that you have that background of being able to be both a coach and a consultant as well. And I just want listeners to know like what the difference between the two is, because it's a very fluid title. And I think just a general title that's been thrown around, like you're a coach.
Totally agreed. Yes. And also not all career coaches come from HR background, and it's like also a huge misconception. But just as you said, there's no real like definition. There's no law defining what is a coach, what is a consultant, what is a career coach. So it's kind of up to us as content creators then to bring that message out, right, and try to differentiate through our communication. But it's definitely, there's a lot of potential for misunderstandings and putting people in boxes where I totally agree. How I always say it is like, of course, like you said, you can learn the strategies to do it, but if you don't resolve, let's say, your negative beliefs, it's more about pushing through. And how much in your life do you want to live like that? Just like, I really don't feel like talking to a new person, but now I'm just pushing through. And now I just force myself to do something that I actually really hate. And, all of that things is like, then it's not fun. Then it's actually something that you don't look forward to doing. And for me, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be easy. It's in some way, not easy in a way I don't have to make any effort, but like this feeling of ease that is allowed in your career as well.
That's my big word right now, is like ease and flow versus like pushing and like trying to motivate yourself. And yes to all of that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I have, oh my God, you have done so many things, and I know I have so many questions for you.
Well, we booked 90 minutes, so let's go.
We'll manage that. So take us on the journey a little bit with you. So you are a very successful entrepreneur right now, and you're coming from a corporate background, right? So the question that I always am very interested in is like, when was that moment in your life when you're like, I need a change, like something's either not right, or was it more like vision based, so like you were attracted to something else, or was it also you got pulled away from something because it just didn't feel right anymore?
Yes, I am so grateful for my worst, most toxic boss ever. He was the catalyst of me starting CultiVitae and my mission. Essentially, like, even if I backtrack a bit, I never knew like what I wanted to do. Like, my career has been very just let things fall into my lap. And, people would be like, do you want to be a project manager? Sure, that sounds cool. Even being a career coach, that like fell into my lap. The Muse reached out to me and asked, do you want to be a career coach? And I was like, sure, that sounds cool. But now I'm looking back at all of it, and I realize I have a common through line throughout my whole career, which is I just wanted to support and help people. And I was very inquisitive, and I wanted to give advice and like help. And even as like a little kid, I used to like pretend I was the teacher to all my friends. Like, I'd huddle them around and be like, we're going to learn this today. So I had like all these commonalities, but I didn't really connected to a career throughout my 20s, I was like a major job hopper. Just again, anytime an opportunity came, I was like, sure, that sounds cool. And I didn't stay at a company for more than a year. Like I was a serial job interviewer, serial job hopper. But eventually I made my way into all of those things that I shared came really natural, like my inquisitiveness, my wanting to like work with humans, my wanting to just like help people. And I eventually fell into recruiting. And in 2016, started a job as a recruiting manager at a Fortune 500 company. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is my dream job. During the interview, the manager was so charismatic. I remember coming home and telling my now husband, like, I'm going to learn so much from him. He's so supportive. He's just the biggest champion. We had really great rapport. And then I started the job on Monday and it was a total nightmare, like bait and switch. He told me during the interview I could bring my dog to work because it was like a pet brand company. And then he was like, why did you bring your dog? You're not allowed to bring dogs here. Like so like everything was a lie basically in the interview. But I really tried to tough it out. But I realized you shouldn't be crying in the bathroom stalls. You shouldn't be crying on the way home from work. And one day I was like 6 months into the job. I just remember coming home from like my hour commute and I was like fed up and I was like, that's it. I'm going to be my own boss and I'm going to help people like find career happiness and I'm going to quit. And so that basically was how I started and like my big aha moment. And at the time, like I just really resented my manager. But now that I have perspective on it because time has passed, I'm just like, wow, thank God he showed up in my life when he did, because it just put me on a completely new career path that I'm meant to be on. And for the first time as like a coach, I feel like I finally found my purpose and my calling. And this is what I was born to do. And like, the path that I meant to be on. Whereas I knew in my 20s, I was just grabbing at anything. And I think that's important to an extent because you don't know enough about yourself. But now I truly feel like I'm in my fullest alignment and my fullest purpose.
That is amazing. So basically, one bad manager was enough for you to completely leave the corporate world behind. Does that mean that already before you had those thoughts here and there?
No, I never had. Yeah, I never had an entrepreneurial bone in my body. Like my family never had businesses. Like I never really considered it. But at the time, I think what also was a catalyst was I didn't start off as a career coach. I actually started as a travel blogger. So when I started my new job, I had already planned like 6 months from now, I'm going to go on a 6-month vacation and travel the world. And when I accepted the job, I told my boss I got my timelines mixed up. I was going to do it in 9 months. Like I was saving up to go on a trip 9 months. And when I experienced all of that, I was just like, okay, I'm packing up my bags and I went on a trip and I went to Munich and to Berlin and like 13 other countries during that time period. But I also was like, okay, I don't want to just like dip into my savings. How can I learn a new skill? And I bought a course on like how to start a blog. I was like, I'll be a travel blogger. So I started just traveling, writing about it, taking pictures. And then I realized maybe like 3 months in that documenting everything completely sucked the joy out of just being in the moment at these beautiful sites. Cause I was always thinking like, okay, like what can I write about this versus just being like, wow, the Eiffel Tower is so beautiful, you know? And so when I was traveling, I was also starting to write like just what I wish candidates knew. As a recruiter, like I couldn't give honest feedback, but I started to write daily posts on LinkedIn. And then I started to just transfer my writing from travel content to to career content. And I don't know, everything just kind of unfolded. I never really thought like, when did it spark or like how did this come about? It just seemed like a very natural, like as I followed my curiosity and just said yes to the next steps, like things started to unfold. And then everything from my past like transferred over, like my blogging skills, my content skills, like I still use that to this day, just on a different topic.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So was there just like this one moment or this one feeling where like, yes, that's it. Finally, I found it.
That's a really good question. I feel like when I got my first feedback from someone who was just like, thank you, like your advice has made a big difference. It's like somebody I had never met, but just receiving that and saying like, to your point about like the influencing, like I was able to influence somebody to do something that made a positive impact. I had never felt that in my corporate career. Like I've never really gotten like the appreciation or the gratitude. And I think in that moment, I was just like, wow, I want to do more of this. Like I want to help more people. And so that might have been the spark for me.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's totally rewarding. And I think especially if people listen to that now and they're like, yeah, of course, but she has like 35,000 followers, it does matter because those are all individuals, right? And there's just so much more potential there, in terms of every single individual counts. It's like if you make have a good impact and help somebody create a happier life or more joyful career or whatnot, that is already such a high value for you as a creator, right?
Yeah, but this actually happened like when I didn't have a following at all. Like just me writing from my LinkedIn account that I created in college and never like touched again. I probably had like 300 connections back then, and I heard something one day which was like, because I think a lot of people get stuck in vanity metrics or like, oh, like I see this and it's so hard for me to start because I'm so behind. But like it was like saying if you connect with one person, that's like having a one-to-one conversation. But if you write something and it even reaches like 15 people, that's like you standing in front of a classroom and talking to the classroom. If you reach like 500 people, it's like you're in an auditorium. If you reach like 5,000 people, it's like you're in a stadium, But like even thinking about like, wow, I can be in a classroom every day, like talking to somebody who needs to hear this. That enough is like, looking past the numbers. It's just like, this is like, to your point, a human on the other end that you can change their lives, change something in their life.
Yeah, totally. And another question that I always had in the back of my mind when I see other career coaches out there doing their thing, coming from HR, coming from recruiting specifically, a question I always have is like, did it matter? I read on your website, I think that you said, well, of course, as a recruiter, I also had like to say no to 99% of the candidates because there's only one position open, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Does that somehow impact the vision of helping those 99% other people to find something that they, are happy about and that fits into their career?
Oh, totally. Like as a recruiter, I was only able to say like, sorry, we decided to go with another candidate. We hope you apply again in the future. Like everyone knows that line. But what I realized is like the people who knew how to market themselves and knew how to present themselves, like they were getting the offers. But the people who really needed help, like you can't give any feedback to them. I actually tried once in, I think, my early recruiting days, and the candidate got really defensive and started to like argue me of like, oh, but actually I do have this and this and this, and you should consider me because blah, 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 blah. The hiring decision had already been made. And so I understand why recruiters aren't able to do it. And I think that also was the big catalyst of like, okay, well, how do I start sharing what I know so that I can help the 99% that don't know and that keep getting rejected but aren't told why? Because I'm a big believer, like you can't improve your blind sides. You can't improve like what you're not told. And so if I can just give that perspective, then I think that's really helpful. But also, a lot of career centers in college, they teach quite like outdated tactics. And a lot of the people that I attract are kind of in more mid-level careers, and they're more senior. Like I would say anywhere from 30s, 40s, 50s is kind of my audience. And so even what you're taught in college, like go to a career fair and hand out your resume, like that stuff isn't applicable at a certain level of your career. And it really does become more relationship based. And yet we're not taught these skills. So like for me, when I started out and people started asking me for help, I was kind of puzzled because I was like, oh, doesn't everybody know this already? But I realized, oh, I only know it because I've been through the recruiting lens, but most people, they don't know this, even though they're like high up in their professions or they're like a director or something, you know? And even then, like I have a lot of recruiting and HR professionals who join my programs and they're like, it's completely different being on the other side. Like it's a different perspective. So yeah, all that to say is, I feel like I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
No, you're good. That was already pretty intense and a lot of information. So thanks a lot for that. I can totally follow up on this because while you were talking, then I was like, that would be interesting to know. What would you say now after having worked with so many individuals already? What do you say right now are like the 2 or 3 main, let's say, biggest learnings that they take away from you, from your classes, from your programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I work with a lot of career transitioners who do have a lot of limiting beliefs of like, I can't get the job because I don't have this industry experience, or I'm too old, or I don't have this pedigree. And so I think the biggest thing that they're learning is how to determine like what is a limiting belief and really rewriting their narrative and making sure that they're truly accepting of who they are and embracing who they are and seeing it as an advantage. So one of the big things that I make sure my clients understand is like, okay, even with this, like, why are you still perfect for that job? Or why are you able to go after that job? I think the second part in the piece is resilience. I think a lot of people have just based on our society and the way that it's structured, you know, we're always taught to go for the A. And if you don't get an A, then you're not good enough, or you're failing, or you're inferior or incompetent. And I think rejection really holds a lot of people back, or like the fear of rejection holds them back. And so a big thing that I work with my clients on is resilience and building that inner belief and that inner trust that I am safe, that I am approved of, that I am in control, regardless of what happens on the exterior. And then the third thing that I'm really like mostly working with a lot of my clients on now is just how to find that joy and that happiness in the process rather than like thinking it's coming from an external end result or achievement. So when they are able to tap in from that place and like really see this as more of a game, then like I just can't be happy until I get that. If I get that, then I'll be happy mentality. This is when I think things start to like lessen up for them and they can start to, what we talked about earlier is like tap into like more ease and more flow and more joy. And then they end up getting like these, what they would call like miraculous, serendipitous moments. Like I have a client I just spoke with who we've been trying to like have her tap more into her feminine energetics because she's very been like survival and scarcity oriented and wired for like, I got to just do. Yes. So the past month we've been focusing on how do you like allow yourself to just flow and like let things be easier and like just see what is inspiring you versus like trying to motivate yourself to apply online all the time. And the coolest thing happened. She actually applied online. She didn't put like a lot of effort into her application. She just saw a job. She's like, okay, that sounds interesting. Like submit. And she got the interview. And then during the interview, there's so many like synchronicities. The hiring manager was like, oh, I'm writing a book on feminine energetics. And what I'm really looking for is an executive assistant who can really nurture me and like take care of me. So like in my house, in my office, I want somebody to help me with like fresh flowers so I could feel like more inspired. And I could like I want you to like make this place more creative. And like the interview itself was like just the interviewer not even asking about her resume, but like, tell me about yourself and like, who are you? And she was able to express herself fully and freely. And at the end of the interview, the lady was like, so can you start on Monday? And my client said when she left the building, she was like, she couldn't even celebrate because she was like, how could it be so easy? Like, that seemed too easy or too good to be true. But I was like, just like, wow, what an amazing like attraction right there. Like you being in your feminine state and like allowing yourself to feel the ease and the flow. Like you've attracted somebody who's all about ease and flow and is like just the most amazing manager. So all that to say is like, I've been working with my clients on just stop striving and like operating from such a masculine energy of like do. Because we also know like so many job seekers who post on LinkedIn, like I'm on my 500th application and I haven't gotten an interview and, I haven't gotten an offer. And so to me, like masculine energetics, like if you're 100% there and 0% in the feminine, it's just going to be a really challenging and unjoyful process.
Yeah, totally. No fun at all. And I think that's also so great to hear and so inspiring / motivating or giving hope, let's say, that it seems like the whole notion is entering the corporate world also, step by step, let's say. I think right now still probably, I don't know, 90, 95, 99 even percent of the people think working, especially in corporations, is all about that masculine energy. If you don't know what it is, it's like about, okay, you have a goal, you make a plan, and you just push through. And this pushing energy is kind of like very, very masculine. There's more to it, obviously, but just as a very blunt example, I think, so that everybody can understand. Whereas the feminine, like you said, is more like also staying in the ease, what brings me joy. And I think if we come back to having that in balance, like it's literally masculine energy, feminine energy is yin and yang, right? And the symbol in itself shows that it has to be a balance. It's not just one or the other. So I think that's great to hear that even like, executives start to understand that start to understand, okay, I'm very masculine and I do need a little bit more of the feminine here in my office, in my surrounding, in order to make the right decisions for all of my, let's say, perhaps, department, the people in the department who all are both masculine and feminine energy. It's like you cannot be successful in the long term, I feel, if you just do one. And it's so great to hear that slowly but steadily, people start to understand it also in our world. I think, it depends on where you grew up, obviously, in what culture. But here in the Western world, that's something that is very inspiring to hear. I'm pretty relieved to hear that story, Nearly.
Yeah, I was just like so happy for her. And I think you're right. Like our society, our culture, it's like work hard, play hard, like productivity, everything. Like everything's about productivity. But I am seeing more leaders really embracing like, okay, how can we make work more collaborative and joyful? And, it's important to like have structure. It's important to have goals, but how do we also make sure that we're allowing for creative expression and we aren't like trying to squeeze out 8 hours from our employees every day, but like really giving them that space to like have new ideas and to innovate and to think and to be in flow. So I see it happening more in the corporate workplace, but I also know it's like a very cultural thing too. Like law firms, probably not in that, embracing that as much as like, I think a lot of tech companies are kind of ahead in many ways. Nonprofits, education, like what I'd love to see is like all the industries like really embracing this, but I think it starts with a leader. And like, I think if a leader is listening to this right now, I really hope that they can learn about masculine and feminine energetics and like how to put that into the workplace so that it could be more sustainable and enjoyable and therefore more productive in the end or the long run.
Totally. And I fully also agree on what you said about the industry, but even there, in case somebody's listening who's working in the law industry or in a law firm, even there you have to be creative, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the end, everybody will benefit from it. In my opinion, that's just my belief. But yeah, so great to hear. Great story.
Yeah.
So,
And I think even if you're in a law firm, like you can embrace your feminine energy by also just allowing for more breaks, really like listening to your body and like, you know what, I just finished this meeting. Instead of hopping into another, I'm going to try to schedule like a 5-minute white space on my calendar to like go out and let the sun hit my face and, you know, come back with some renewed energy. So there's so many ways of creating feminine energy. And again, still allowing it to be structured and supported by the masculine.
totally. Yes. Wow, great example. I love it. So, do you see that more and more? Do you, let's say, yeah, let's just start there. Do you see that more and more in your clients that come to you, that those kinds of topics are also relevant and being discussed, and there's an openness towards them? Because I could just imagine like 15 years ago, if you're a career coach and you talk to somebody about feminine energy, they would probably turn around and walk out the door because they're like, I wanted to have some career advice here, you know?
Yeah. My clients love it, and it just comes out so organically because I'm working with so many high achieving, burned out professionals that are just unfulfilled and uncontent. And it just really boils down to understanding your patterns and like, okay, well, what are your beliefs around productivity and being a people pleaser and saying yes all the time? So a lot of times my clients come to me because they want to land a dream job, and we work on that. Like we do work on the steps that are going to get you there, but I don't love to just jump into the resume without them understanding, like, well, how did you even get here? Like, because the last thing I want is for you to get another job with a new manager, a new environment, thinking that's going to solve the problem, because very rarely does it. You're just going to be presented to another environment with a different cast of characters, but you're still going to be like, oh my gosh, I still can't speak up, or I feel like I have to say yes. And I'm so small because I'm afraid that if I say no, I'm not going to get promoted, or I'm afraid that they're not going to see me as valuable, or I don't think I'm going to be worthy of this job because they gave me like this big title and this big salary jump. And now I have to like overperform, you know? So like, to me, it just really comes up naturally. And like every single one of my sessions, we start with like, okay, what do you want to support around today? And they like have this like tangible 3D goal. And again, we get there at the end, but what we dig into is so much deeper than that. And then they realize like, oh, like that thing was actually not as important as what we just like excavated here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. And I also believe very strongly that, especially as a leader, if you have clients, you know, that are already pretty high up the corporate ladders, if you don't have the internal growth, you just cannot be a wholesome leader to your employees as well, right? Because then it's like it probably doesn't feel 100% true to themselves. So with the also symptoms coming in, all of that, if one thing goes wrong, then you have a manager who's getting defensive and employees are like, what is going on here? But it's because the internal growth they didn't catch up yet with the external, let's say the title, the salary, the responsibility for so many people as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's something called like the soul line, like, and then the goal line. So a lot of us are focused on the goal line. It's like we're trying to get to that next thing, but internally, like our internal growth is the line that goes perpendicular to that, and it goes up. And if we haven't done the inner work, if we haven't like really looked at our traumas and our triggers and like who we are and our nervous system regulation, like any one thing is going to set us triggered, and we're going to like sabotage, or we're going to just react versus respond in a more conscious way. And then again, we are like wondering why we can't hold whatever, we can't maintain whatever, we are not deserving of whatever. So yeah, I think all that to say is like, I think a lot of clients really focus on the goal line without realizing what they need on the soul line. But that's, to me, doing both, working on both is what's going to be the most successful for the client. But they're not even aware of the soul line. Like most people are not aware of like all the inner stuff. And again, I think that's where a coach can really help with that. And then the consultant can help with like the goal line and or both. Like a coach usually helps with both.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just smiling while you were telling that, because you literally were talking about my last 5 podcasts that I made, like the exact topics.
Awesome.
So
I
funny.
love it.
Yeah. Well, how is it if you think about your clients? They come to you with the goal perspective, and then you kind of course, get them into thinking, tapping into the soul line in that regards. Is everybody open to that, or do you also encounter resistance there?
I think most of the clients that I attract are open to it, even if it's something completely new to them. Like today, I just had a client that I took them into somatic practice, and they were like, okay, what is that? Like, I usually have to explain it and like just reassure them, like, trust me through this process. We're going to get there. But I also know my clients, and I don't think anyone is identical to another. So if I can sense that somebody's really cerebral, then I'll usually stay in like the paradigm shifting with them until we've done enough work to then get them to enter their bodies. Yeah, so it really is different, but I would say the majority of my clients don't have resistance to it. I do have some clients that are just like, again, very like in their head, very logical. And so it's hard. They're so disconnected right now. But that's like something I'm going to challenge them on in the future. Yeah.
How long does an average process like that take, roughly?
I usually work with my clients in 3-month sessions, 3-month packages where we meet every other week. And there's some clients where like on session 1, they're just already going there. They're like able to be really vulnerable. They're able to really share and open up. And they're just like a sponge. Like, yes, I trust you. Take me to where you want me to go. For some clients, it could be that we never get to like the body because they're just working on so much and understanding and trying to dissect things apart. So it really varies. But yeah, I would say, and generally speaking, like they're able to get some really big new insights and revelations within the first session. And then it just kind of cracks them open to even more possibilities.
Wow. Great. I love it. You were just starting to explain a little bit more also about the programs, and I think it would be very interesting for everybody to understand also a little bit more, perhaps about your offering, about how you set up, like if they want to work with you, if they hear you. And you have some online programs as well, so perhaps you want to dive into that a little bit as well.
Sure. I guess I'm in a transitionary state right now, but one thing that I have and has proven to be really helpful is my Happily Hired program. So that's really like if you want holistic job search support, it breaks down like the strategies, the how to, like basically when I first started, I was doing one-on-one sessions with all different peoples of all different backgrounds, all different industries. And I just got so annoyed because every session, I just found myself repeating myself over and over and over because people had the same questions like, how do I network? What should I do in this situation? Like, what should my resume or my LinkedIn profile headline be? And so basically over like a period of 100 one-on-one calls, I found myself just repeating myself over and over to the point where I stopped getting excited. I was like, it's just kind of like trying to get the words out, but like I could tell my energy had dropped. So that's when in 2018, I decided to create my first course. And to me, like I never want to spend time on the phone with someone teaching them how to do something. I think it's a waste of time. I'd rather be like, here, go to this module, check out this lesson. Here's the whole template. Here's what to do after. And let's talk about where you're having a difficult time implementing that or like how to adapt this or customize it to you. So my programs are basically like there's a DIY, like here's the course, everything you need to know, you're a go-getter, just go do it and then, implement. But I also have a lot of people who are looking for community. They want customization. They want support. They want to be like really talking about themselves on a deeper level. And like I said, working on soul line goals. So then that's my second tier, which is like a group coaching program called the Happily Hired Formula. And then I have a higher tier program called the Happily Hired Accelerator, which is basically just one-on-one coaching. And again, this is where we talk about like the goal line, but so much more is kind of extracted through the process of like, oh, okay, like this is why I don't know what I want to do because I'm a big overthinker, or like I don't trust my decision making, or I have like a lot of clients who are like, I'm really bad at networking, I'm really bad at interviewing. But again, it goes back to the story that they're telling themselves and really trying to unpack like why is that, so we can shine a light on it and then release it and then reframe it into something that's more empowering. And with the one-on-one, it's very like customized. Every single session ends with like a very customized challenge that they have to like implement and integrate. Because to me, like it's all about the integration. You can like hear all this, but like until you actually do it and live it, it's just knowledge. It's just information.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. So you also share on Instagram a little bit about your family and a bit about your private life. Not too much, but just enough for me to ask the question, how do you manage all of that?
Yeah. So I have a 3-year-old and a 20-month-old. And when I was pregnant with my 3-month-old, I kid you not, I was 20 weeks pregnant when I found out I was pregnant. Like, he was already in his second trimester, already knew the gender. But I'm telling that to you because I used to be like a workhorse. I used to be like a masculine, like I just got to build, so career oriented, so career driven, to the point where I didn't even know like what month it was. My friends were like, don't you track your time of month? And I was like, I thought it was still January, but it's like March right now. You know, like I had no like idea what month it was. And then during the time I like had all the pregnancy symptoms, but I was just self-diagnosing. I was like, I tell my husband, like, I'm so tired. And he's like, oh, just make another cup of coffee. Maybe you're bored of your work. I was like, yeah, maybe. And then I get like, I was like gaining weight and like it couldn't fit into my jeans anymore. And then my husband was like, oh, maybe because we're eating like such unhealthy junk food. I was like, yeah, maybe. Like I'll start eating more salads. Like it was terrible. I actually found out because my friend one day was like, don't be offended, Emily, but you look pregnant. And I was like, oh my gosh. So anyways, all that to say is like the moment I found out I was 20 weeks pregnant, I was like, okay, I gotta like build processes. I gotta build systems. I gotta build a team. I gotta prepare for my maternity leave. And it was my first time where I like really relied on other people because I was always like very independent and like anything that I do, I'm just going to do. But that really forced me to hire a team of coaches, hire a team, just automate anything I could, delegate anything I could, eliminate anything that I didn't need. And I was able to go on break and everything was running so smoothly. And my like clients loved the coaches that I hired. And I was like, even after my maternity leave, I was like, do you guys want to stay on? So all of that to say is like, I really rely on a village of people to make my life easier. I have a husband who helps me when I'm in my busy seasons. He just holds down the fort. He takes care of the kids. He does the cooking, the grocery shopping, the cleaning. I also have my mom here that helps out Monday, Wednesday, Friday with my little one. And I think I also just stop taking on as much, like really allowing myself to see my career in a season. Like right now I see a lot of other coaches out there and they're like crushing it and they're killing it. And they're like, oh, and like I had this amazing like multi-6-figure launch. And I'm like, good for you. Like I used to have the energy for that. And I used to have the desire for that, but I just don't anymore. Like not to say I won't in the future, but right now I'm just really allowing myself to understand what I value and what I prioritize. And now, like anything that takes me away from being fully present with my kids, to like have a meal with my kids, to spend time on the weekends with my kids, I'm just a hard no. Like I'll say, no, I can't do that. Or, you know, let's reach back out next year and see if things have changed, or you still need this next year. And I'm okay with that.
Wow. I love it. Do you still have a whole team behind you, or
Yeah. I used to have a team of 5, and I've downsized to a team of 3, just 3 core like support people. And then I have my coaches still, but they're contractors. So it's very like hourly. But yeah, I in January just started to feel so much misalignment, and I like had this constant pressure to like just launch. Like we would finish the launch and be like, "Oh, we need to launch again," because the payroll was really high. And I just realized I recognized I was operating from a lot of scarcity, and I was just feeling like, for a long time, I've wanted to pivot more into like general life coaching. I'm still going to do the career coaching because that's what I love. And I have the proven programs, and it's gotten so many great results. But I also am in this season where I want to talk more than just about career and job search. I want to talk about relationships. I want to talk about sex. I want to talk about, all of the things like personal finance, health and wellness, all the things that touch your life and make you happy. And so as I'm transitioning into starting to offer more life coaching programs and like creating courses and group coaching event experiences around that, I intentionally let go of two of my employees so that I could just create the space to allow the feminine creativity and the inspiration and the flow to come. And like when I feel inspired to do something, I'm doing it. So in many ways, I just see it as cycles. I don't want to say like I regressed, but like I kind of went backwards so that I can go back to basics and just operate from a place of like, is this a hell yes? Is this aligned for me? Do I want to do this? Do I feel like this is exciting? If yes, then I am like a whole, like 2 feet in, yes. And if no, then no. But I don't have that pressure anymore that I had when I had like a big team and like, it's at the end of the day, it's a business. It has to make financial sense.
No, totally. And there's a huge responsibility on having a payroll and having people, that, they also depend on the monthly payment. They need to pay for the rent, etc. So that makes a lot of sense. You need to give yourself the space first in order to take a step back. And I wouldn't say, I don't know, what did you say? You recline?
Like
regress, yeah, but I wouldn't call it that way. I think, it's just taking a step back and reflecting on what do you really want and what life do you want to live as an entrepreneur and a mom of 2. It's like there's so much to it. So that's very admirable, like very inspirational.
Thank you. It was a really tough decision. Like, I don't want people listening to this to be like, oh, like you could just make a decision overnight. This was like a 2-year decision where I finally made the execution on it. But it took a long time. And I think that's good too, because I feel like a lot of people feel like they need to make impulsive decisions, or like, I'm just really unhappy, so I'm just going to like react and like do something or not do something. But to me, like having a lot of time to reflect and like spaciousness allows you to be like, okay, is this instability or like this off feeling something that keeps presenting itself? Then I know something's off here, that the misalignment is here. And I will share, like the moment I made the decision, like I had made the decision, but I executed on the decision, like just so much relief like overcame my body. And I just felt like this lightness, like this heavy load just taken off my shoulders. And like I have people on my Instagram now that are just like, I love this new version of you. Like you just seem so much more fun and like light. And I'm like, and joyful. And I'm like, thank you. Because that's exactly what I preach. And, I think to embody it is like always the hardest part, but like going through it, it's really cool to see other people recognize it and like see it. And so for any of your listeners out there, like if you know something is past its completion date or expiration date, like I just want to encourage you to take that scary leap and like really allow yourself to feel the load come off. And like I know other people in your orbit are going to recognize something's new, something's different about you as well.
Yeah. And I think also exactly what you said, right? I think listening to your whole story, it's like, and then thinking about, you know, the clients or my own life as well. I think the hardest part is always what, it doesn't sound hard, but it's the hardest part to have that balance, because like some people are like, oh, I don't like it, I quit tomorrow. That's not a good idea, and it's something I would recommend anybody. And the others are like, I don't like it, but I have to stay in that job for 5 more years because somebody told me at some point that if I'm a VP or whatnot, right, then I have to stick around for so long to actually prove my point or whatnot. And then the balance, that's always the hardest part. It's like really figuring out, it's like, I don't want to be impulsive and make a decision just out of a momentary gut feeling, but at the same time, I don't want to neglect my intuition. So this is always a challenge also for me. For me, it's about the masculine and feminine energies, just like you said in the beginning, because I'm also like the doer and the type A kind of person, definitely in my job. And then now with the own business, I'm like, okay, I'm going to schedule in taking care of myself, doing some yoga, some meditation, all of those things. And then found myself not doing it anymore as much as before when I was in corporate, because there I had a very tough schedule. So I needed to get up like those, 45 minutes earlier to be able to do it. And now that I can include it in my, let's say, work day, and I try to make it more easy, then sometimes I'm like, darn, I haven't done it. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
balance is always the most challenging thing, I feel. So it's great to hear that you took the time, and also fully agreed, letting people go is definitely not an easy thing to do. But it can be the right decision at some point. It just depends on the circumstances, really, right?
Yeah. One thing that I believe in is understanding like a completion cycle. So like, am I coming from this to this decision from a place of I feel complete? Like I just know I've done everything that I can. I intuitively know that I'm ready to just end this chapter so that I can create something new. Or am I self-sabotaging because I'm afraid or something like that? So back to your original example of like, if you hate a job and you like say, oh, I'm just going to quit today. Like, is it truly complete, or are you running away from something? And then on the flip side of that, like, should I stay in the job for 5 years because Bob told me that in order to be successful, I need to like be a VP, and only that can come with 5 years time. You know, to me, that sounds like a lot of scarcity, a lot of limiting thinking, a lot of like assumptions and like buy-ins. And so I think the question for that person is like, do I feel complete for what I've been able to achieve here? And if I wasn't scared, if I wasn't making a fear-based decision, what would a values-based decision look like? Like, what is a decision that's going to honor my values and put me back in alignment? So that's kind of how I see it in my head, is just like really understanding the completion cycle. Like we all activate things, we all increase, we all work towards something. And then a lot of times like people are afraid to complete because of the history, or like I have so many memories and pictures with my ex, or it's like the sunk cost fallacy. Like sometimes you buy new clothes and it's sitting in your closet for like 2 years, and you with the price tag still on, you're like, oh, but I can't get rid of it because that was like $60 and like I didn't get to wear it, And so like, but are you complete with it? Like, is it done? Is it over? And as long as the answer to that is yes, then I think you're making an intentional decision.
Yeah. No, that is a great example. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. It's a good picture also for people to have something visual in their head, right? That they can refer to.
Yeah. I also like to think about like a garage. Like in order to make space for a new car, you have to get rid
Yeah.
of the old one. So like what is old that's not serving you anymore that you don't want to hold on to? And like as you move that out, you allow space or you create space for something new to enter.
Yes. Yes. And that is definitely also that's like a muscle that can be trained, right? It can
Mm,
start with something smaller,
yeah. Like your
getting rid of old.
clothes that you're not wearing. Yeah.
Yeah, totally, totally. I 100% agree. There was one online coach. She's German, so probably you don't know her, but she said the exact sentence, and the way she put it, or she phrased it, was like, "Your new life will cost you your old life." And to
Mm,
me, that was so inspiring because it's true. Like I think naturally, especially we come out of college and all of a sudden we earn money and all, and then I guess it's kind of natural as well in some way for many people to start hoarding, basically. So it's like, oh, now I have that. So basically, I don't want to give anything away, but I want to have
mm,
more. And then
yes.
and then learning that actually letting go is part of the process as well, in order
Yeah.
for new things, for truly good new things to come into your life. That is so important. And I feel like nobody tells us that. If you don't search
Mm,
for those things, it's really rare that you hear it. And I've repeated that sentence so many times. And whenever I do it, most of the people, like not you, but like most of them are like, oh, wow, okay, never thought of it that way.
yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
nobody tells us really, let's say in a broad
Mm,
audience, in the mass media, whatever, in school.
yeah. Well, I actually have thought about this a lot because my
Mhm.
mom is a hoarder. And what I realized is because there's like things that she still has in her house that just drive me nuts. It's like been there for 10 years and she just won't let it go, even though it could be easily replaced at the Dollar Tree. Like I'm talking about like a spatula, for instance. Um, and as I was talking with her, I realized it's all about scarcity and abundance because to her, like she didn't have a lot of money growing up. And so she knows what that immigrant struggle is like. And so everything that she's accumulated, she wants to hold on to because like everything represents like a dollar earned, right? Um, whereas like I come from more of like an abundant mindset where I'm like, oh, I adopt minimalism. So whatever is not like sparking joy, I'm going to like let it go and I can always replace it. But then I realized like, oh, that's such a, like minimalism is such an abundant mindset because you have to be able to replace it financially. Whereas like for people who have like in my mom's case, like hoarding mentality, it's like I'm going to hold tightly onto this because I don't know if I can replace it. So I found that to be so like juxtaposed because I used to think like, oh, minimalism is about like embracing less, but in many ways, like to be a minimalist, you have to be able to think about like more. Like I can always have more. I can always get more because I have less, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. So I like had to share that because to me, I was just like, why can't she let this go? But again, it's like the whole scarcity and abundance thinking.
Yeah, and that's which is very much also depending on how we got conditioned growing up, right? And I think the
Mm-hmm.
boomer generation, there were still a lot of them were still in the mentality, which is, at least in my theory, that is why the millennials now start to be more minimalistic and all, because we've
Mm-hmm.
lived in those households that were so crowded,
Yes.
and there was like if you wanted to try something new, it was like, but where are you gonna put it? So like
Mm-hmm.
let's
Yeah.
suddenly think about something else, something new, something innovative, because there's no space, there's no room, there's no headspace even, right?
Right. So
Without
cluttered.
it. Yeah, clutter,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh wow! The funny thing is, all the questions I've written down, I think we didn't even touch two or three. We talked about completely different things, but I love it, and I
It went
still think,
exactly where it needs to go.
yes, exactly. We let it flow.
Love that.
So, still, the last two questions are the ones that I ask all of my podcast guests. So, the first one is, where can the audience find you and your work, or what are your preferred channels?
Okay. I really like Instagram. I feel like that's where I share more of my personal side. So it's at CultiVitae. You can put that in the show notes, but it's CultiVitae, which is supposed to stand for Cultivate Your Life, but also was like a play on words for CV, like curriculum vitae. Get it? Get it? And my website is also cultivitae.com.
Nice. Great. Thank you. You know what? I had made a completely different interpretation of your name.
Oh, I want to hear it.
I was like, because probably, I'm not even sure if it's a good idea to share it here, but for me, I was pronouncing it differently in my head.
Yeah.
And I was like, for me, it was more the idea of ease coming in with the cultivating, what you want, and then cultivating, and then in the end, the TEA, like a T, So
Oh, okay. I like that too, because I'm all about the Zen life. And I actually have a podcast too called Cultivate Your Joyful Life. And I always imagine like holding a cup of tea. So there we go. I feel like we spill the tea. So I can see the connection there.
So funny. Well, sometimes I can get very creative. If it doesn't strike me straight away, I will find some theory how it could all make sense. All right. Good. Well, now everybody knows how my brain works. And then the last question is back to the careers. What is the career advice that you would have loved to receive, let's say, in the first 5 to 10 years of your corporate life? What is it that was like the thing that would have, helped you the most?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. So when I'm 25 to 30, 5 to 10 years in, what would be the most? What's coming to me is to just reframe rejection into a lesson learned, because I see now so many clients of mine who are so afraid of even taking the first step to what they really want, because they're so afraid of rejection and / failure. And they mask it by saying, well, I don't know what I want to do. And then when I talk to them, it's so evident. You know exactly what you want to do. So, like, what are you afraid of? And it always boils down to, again, failing, not being successful, being rejected. And so they continue staying stagnant or settling for like the status quo, because they're always in like the what if thinking. But I just really want to encourage you, if you're resonating with that right now, to just take the first step. And like, what would you do if you could not fail? What would you do if you like rejection was not even on the table or a possibility? Like, what action would you do? Because again, so much of like what comes after that, even if it's rejection or failure, like I think if they're able to reframe it and like build that inner resilience to the point where like they expect the rejection and failure, like that is so liberating. And to me, like I've gotten to a point in my career, like initially I was a big people pleaser, and I was very concerned about like what others think. And like even posting my first blog, I never even wrote my name on it. I didn't write my name on it for a year. I didn't put a picture of myself, because I was like, I'm so afraid of like what other people are going to think, what if it's not successful? I just told the whole world what I'm doing, my whole family. But now, like, I just do everything without even caring about like what other people's thoughts or feelings are about it, because I always just know if I'm doing what I believe I'm meant to do and I'm on my path and I'm not intentionally hurting anyone, then that's all that really matters. And that's what's allowed me to like build a meaningful career and a meaningful life that feels authentic to me, and not subscribing to like what other people expect of me.
That is a great piece of advice.
Yeah, I have so many, but I guess that's why I have my own podcast. I have like so many other things I want to add to that, but I'll stop here.
No, that's great. That's amazing. And well, thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself, of your thoughts, of your, your past, and as well. And I'm really grateful that you were here in the podcast. Thanks so much, Emily.
Thank you, Philo. It was so much fun. I appreciate you.